another day. Lots of trades to talk about. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, July 30th. It is deadline day. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, we'll break down all the trades that went down, some of them more significant than others for fantasy. We will eventually get to Monday's action. Jazz Chisholm had a huge game with the Yankees. Some hitters who are heating up here in the second half. But, Scott, let's just jump in and start things off with this three-team deal. Get this one out of the way because lots of moving parts here between the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and the White Sox. We will start with the Cardinals acquisitions. They got Eric Fedde and Tommy Pham from the White Sox in this deal. Fedde has been great in his return to the majors this season, a 3.11 ERA, a 1.14 whip. He obviously moves over to a much better team, slightly better ballpark to pitch in as well. Tommy Pham having a solid year, 266, 5 home runs, 6 steals, 710 OPS in 70 games played. Not sure he's going to be an everyday player. It feels like maybe they have better players in the outfield currently. But Scott, your thoughts on the landing spots here for Eric Fedde and Tommy Pham?
Well, between the three teams in this deal, this seems like the Cardinals seems like they got the most beneficial return for 2024. The highest impact immediate return went to the Cardinals. But it's also probably the part of the deal that I have the least to say about. Eric Fedde, yeah, he's been stable, reliable for fantasy this year. I think in a way that's kind of hard to understand. And I think it's more likely that he takes a step back than forward, not because he's going to the Cardinals, but because he would have anyway. 3.11 ERA, that's versus a 3.77 xERA, a 3.76 FIP, a 3.96 xFIP. His control is merely decent. His ground ball rate is close to average. His swinging strike rate is really bad. And yet somehow he's had that 3.11 ERA. So I've been expecting Fedde to regress, and I don't think that changes with the Cardinals. You could argue that the better supporting cast maybe cancels out any rise in ERA, but he managed to win 7 games with the White Sox. So I don't know that that pace can actually improve that much. He may have been fortunate to win what he did with the White Sox, but nevertheless, those are the wins he got. I don't see that wins pace improving. Pham's going to play a lot. It's a better lineup because any lineup is better than the White Sox. But again, I don't know that this accomplishes much for him in fantasy other than maybe it puts him back in the 5th outfielder conversation.
Mm-hmm. And both of these players are moving over to the National League. So again, for our NL, AL only players out there, I'll try to reference this as we go along. But yeah, Fedde and Tommy Pham both will become available in NL only leagues. Let's talk about the Dodgers acquisitions. Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech, and a 17-year-old pitcher, Oliver Gonzalez. Edman's still working his way back from offseason wrist surgery. He's played in 8 rehab games, but all of them have been a DH so far. So I'm not exactly sure how close he is. 55% rostered with 3 positions of eligibility: second base, shortstop, and outfield. Michael Kopech, you know the deal. He has nasty stuff. Sometimes he looks unhittable. Sometimes it feels like he has no idea where the ball is going. Maybe the Dodgers can help get the best out of Michael Kopech. And if that happens, he could factor into the closer mix at some point this season. But Scott, your thoughts on the Dodgers acquisitions of this trade?
Well, this might be the most interesting from a real life perspective because, my goodness, the Dodgers gave up a lot for Tommy Edman, a guy who's been out all season recovering from wrist surgery, which hopefully means the reports on the wrist have been good. The production on his minor league rehab assignment hasn't been great, but that's not the most important thing, how he's producing. What's important is how the wrist looks. And the fact that the Dodgers gave up, well, everything that went to the White Sox came from the Dodgers, and basically all the Cardinals gave up for Fedde and Tommy Pham was Tommy Edman. So, yeah, the Dodgers really seem to value him. And you can understand from a defensive perspective, they've struggled to fill the shortstop position really dating back to last year. Mookie Betts was forced to play there. There's been some talk while Betts is recovering from his own injury that maybe he'll go back to second base. So I presume the thinking here was, okay, Tommy Edman gives us a true shortstop. And even if I'm wrong about that, even if they're okay with Betts at shortstop still, I know Gavin Lux has started to heat up, so maybe they want him up the middle still. Edman can play the outfield, and the Dodgers have had some needs there too. So it's versatility and quality defense for a club that's had trouble filling holes that have developed on the diamond throughout the years. But I think the main appeal here is shortstop for the Dodgers. Of course, any hitter added to the Dodgers lineup is going to see a boost in value in fantasy. So I think I'm more enthusiastic about stashing Edman now that he's with the Dodgers than I was before. He is on a rehab assignment, like I said. And we, for the last few years, we've valued him as a base stealer who isn't a total, who won't totally sink you in batting average and home runs. There is a little bit of a contribution in those areas from Edman, but mostly it's about the stolen bases. And yeah, now he'll be doing it for the Dodgers instead of the Cardinals. So I think that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
Kopech, just to get to the Kopech thing, I don't see him factoring in saves for the Dodgers. They have at least 4 relievers who I think would be ahead of him in that pecking order, and they've been indecisive about who closes lately. But Kopech has been not very good. They may like the potential, and they may turn him into something. But in the short term, I don't see him having a fantasy impact. I think this effectively zaps it.
And do you have any indication who will save games for the White Sox? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters. They weren't even that committed to Kopech closing. He did get 9 saves, but they turned to other guys at times, and I think they'll do that even more going forward.
Mm-hmm. John Brebbia, for what it's worth, pitched the 8th inning with a lead here on Monday, and he gave up a go-ahead grand slam to Bobby Witt Jr. So not a great audition there for John Brebbia. The White Sox side of this trade, they acquired Miguel Vargas and 2 infield prospects, Yaral Perez and Alexander Albertus. And Vargas will get the opportunity to play every day. You know, he's had sporadic opportunities with the Dodgers, but I think it's just happening now. He's going to get a runway here. We're going to get to see what Miguel Vargas can do. He's still only 24 years old, but in 129 career games, just a 201 batting average, 11 homers, 5 steals, 658 OPS, does have second base and outfield eligibility. That is Miguel Vargas. And then the other 2 prospects, Scott, you could touch on Vargas first and whether or not it matters for fantasy, and if you have any thoughts on the prospect package.
I don't have many thoughts on the other 2, but I think this Miguel Vargas part is the most exciting part for fantasy because, he finally gets an opportunity. And just to remind you of his potential, at AAA this year, he slashed 290, 440, 566 with 8 home runs and 8 steals, more walks than strikeouts.
440 OBP?
440 OBP. Yeah, he had more walks than strikeouts, 8 home runs, 8 steals in just 41 games. So, and that basically sums up his entire minor league career. Miguel Vargas has always been a big time producer down there. We did see him get a run with the Dodgers last year at second base for a while, but remember he was coming back from a hand injury in spring training, and the exit velocities were unimpressive. The performance was even less impressive. It's gotten better this year. In both the majors and minors. And to a point now that I don't think it's quite the liability I worried it was coming into this season. Like I have renewed hope for Miguel Vargas. And I think the biggest reason it didn't work out for him with the Dodgers was that they just weren't able to stomach his defense anywhere. But that's not going to be a concern for the White Sox. They have so many holes in their lineup. I don't know exactly where they're going to play him, if it's second base or left field. Those would be the 2 most likely, I think. But he's going to play, and I think it puts him in consideration to be added, especially in roto leagues where you have so many hitter spots to fill. And everybody needs to be keeping an eye on him because I think there's legitimate upside here.
Mm-hmm. Miguel Vargas only 10% rostered, so widely available. Again, 12-team roto leagues or deeper. You have a corner, you have a middle, Well, actually, he's only middle and outfield, but you have those extra spots. And yeah, I checked some of my 15 teamers today. He's available in those too. So I think there will be some enthusiasm for adding Miguel Vargas this weekend. Another name who goes over from the NL to the AL will become available in AL only leagues. Let's take our first break, and when we return, on to the next deal. Lane Thomas traded to the Guardians. We'll talk about that right after this.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
The madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back in. Lane Thomas traded over to the Guardians in exchange for left-handed pitcher Alex Clemmie and infielders Jose Tena and Rafael Ramirez. Lane Thomas having a strong year, 253 batting average, 8 home runs, 28 steals with a 738 OPS. The power has come down a little bit this season. He's hitting more line drives, not pulling the ball as much. But as we've seen, the Guardians have done a pretty good job getting power out of their players this year. Scott, what do you think this does for Lane Thomas's value?
Well, that's more true for hitters batting from the left side than from the right side. Progressive Field has been a pretty difficult place for right-handed power, to the point that if Lane Thomas had played every game there over the last 3 years, he'd have 11 fewer home runs. So it's a similar stat to what we saw with Isaac Paredes going to Wrigley Field. Now, I'm not as worried about Lane Thomas losing value as I am Paredes for a couple reasons. One is that the profile isn't exaggerated. Like Isaac Paredes, tiny little icicles on his StatCast page. He doesn't hit the ball with any authority at all. Lane Thomas is more middle of the pack as far as that goes. And Isaac Paredes' power is so concentrated toward that left field foul pole, where Lane Thomas is a little spread out. So I don't think Lane Thomas's profile is as exaggerated as Isaac Paredes, and his one note. Like he's not as limited to being, he's not as confined by his environment, I guess would be the way to put it. So that's one reason I'm not as worried about Lane Thomas losing value. The other is because his game has been less power than speed this year anyway. Last year, he broke out with 28 homers and 20 steals. This year, if you pace his numbers over the same number of games, 156, it comes out to 16 homers, 56 steals. So it went from 28-20 to 16-56. Now, maybe he doesn't run as much with the Guardians. I can't say for sure. They're a team that likes to run a fair amount, not as much as the Nationals, but they're in the upper third of the league as far as stolen bases go. So I imagine he'll still have the same green light he did in Washington. So I think his value is pretty much going to hold. Lane Thomas maybe loses a little with that park shift. Not that the Nationals playing a great place to hit, but maybe Thomas loses a little with that. Overall, though, I think there's enough. He offers enough that it's not going to drastically change his value.
Yeah, I hadn't considered the Nationals have been really aggressive this year on the base paths, second in baseball in steals with 147. The Guardians are tied for 8th with 88. So again, they're still top 10. You mentioned that. And just the team context, I mean, if he's batting second behind Steven Kwan and ahead of Jose Ramirez, he's going to see some pretty good pitches to hit. So, yeah, I mean, just considering all the different factors, it probably comes out to like a net neutral, I think, overall. But another big name here going from the NL to the AL. So, again, those who play in AL only, Lane Thomas will become available to you. The Nationals on Monday had James Wood, Jacob Young, and Alex Call in the outfield. Alex Call actually had a pretty big game here. But I think we're one step closer to seeing Dylan Cruz in the Nationals outfield at some point here in the second half. Just a name you need to know, I think, for deeper leagues for now. Again, that is Dylan Cruz. Let's move over to Yusei Kikuchi, who was traded to the Houston Astros. Scott, I was floored by the package that the Blue Jays received in this trade. It was great job by them. They got pitcher Jake Bloss, who we've seen a few starts, hasn't looked great so far in the majors, but the minor league numbers have been great. Infielder Will Wagner, who's actually the son of Billy Wagner.
That's right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Joey Loperfido. So I think, yeah, this is a great haul for the Blue Jays. We'll get to that side in just a second. But Kikuchi, we know he's been really bad lately. Overall, it's a 4.75 ERA, a 1.34 WHIP, lots of hard hits, lots of home runs. The underlying numbers say maybe he's been a little bit unlucky. A 3.64 FIP, a 3.98 expected ERA, still lots of strikeouts. Maybe the Astros can find a way to get Yusei Kikuchi back on track. The one thing that worries me here, Scott, is Minute Maid Park, Kikuchi being a lefty, giving up hard contact and home runs at times, the Crawford boxes in left field. I don't know. It just kind of worries me about the value here for Yusei Kikuchi.
It's interesting to me that Billy is the dad and Will is the son. You'd think it'd be the other way around. They do have different middle names, so it's not a junior situation, but they're both William. Anyway, I got sidetracked by that and wasn't really listening to what you were saying. So pardon me if I repeat something you said. Yes, I did hear at the end there you're worried about Kikuchi with the Crawford boxes at Houston. And I agree. He's susceptible to home runs, a left-handed pitcher, great place for right-handed power, great place for left-handed power too, because opposite field home runs. So this is a head scratcher. I mean, this might be it's up there with Carlos Estevez in terms of, wow, they got that for him. Because Kikuchi's a free agent at the end of the season, and he hasn't actually pitched all that well. And now he's going to a venue that may not serve him well. It's not all about venue. Maybe the Astros see some way they can get him back on track. Certainly he's underperformed his ERA estimators this year, and he does have the 15th best strikeout to walk ratio among qualifiers. So there's something to work with, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm supremely confident that Kikuchi's going to get back on track with the Astros. And then you have all that talent going the other way. I think Joey Loperfido is the one we're most excited about for fantasy. And spoiler alert, the Blue Jays also traded away Justin Turner. So there would seem to be an opening for Joey Loperfido in their lineup. He does have strikeout issues, significant ones, but the way he improved his exit velocities in the minors, like elite exit velocities, it seems like there's considerable power here for Loperfido. And I'm excited to see if he can make something out of it with a close to full-time role, I would imagine. So Loperfido is the one we're excited about for fantasy, but if you look at real-world prospect lists, Jake Bloss ranks even higher than Loperfido. He was, I think Baseball America had him number 2 in the Astros organization mid-season. We've seen him make 3 starts in the majors. The results weren't great, but in 13 minor league starts this year, 1.64 ERA, 0.78 WHIP, 8.6 K per nine. Not a big strikeout guy, more of a generates weak contact guy is Jake Bloss, with good control. So he may be a better real life pitcher than fantasy pitcher, but I think he's going to slot in the rotation right away, and we'll see where that goes. I think even Will Wagner's kind of interesting and worth commenting on anyway. He is 25 and at AAA. 26 actually. He's turned 26 recently. The day it was traded, actually. Happy birthday, Will Wagner. But 307 batting average, 424 on base percentage at AAA. I could see him, coming up and doing Spencer Horwitz type things.
Mm-hmm. And now they're on the same team. So
yeah,
I think there's a chance we could see all 3 of the prospects that came back in this trade this season and relatively soon up with the Blue Jays. I know Jake Bloss only made a few starts at AAA, so perhaps they want him to get a little bit more seasoning, but Will Wagner, Joey Loperfido, I could see those guys kind of just slotting in here for the Blue Jays moving forward. Scott, who would you rather speculate on in deeper leagues, Joey Loperfido or Miguel Vargas?
I would rather speculate on Vargas. I think the floor is higher for him, if only because of strikeouts.
All right, Scott, your Atlanta Braves reunited, and it feels so good. They acquired
it feels so good.
Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson from the Giants for lefty reliever Tyler Matzik and third base prospect Sabin Ceballos. And Soler having a down season, 240 batting average, 12 homers, 749 OPS. I noted the other day he's been much better since the start of June. In 29 games with the Braves in 2021, we all remember he was awesome, 269, 14 homers, 882 OPS. Hit that Titanic home run in the World Series. I don't think
World Series MVP. I wish I wanted to go upstairs, throw on my Jorge Soler World Series MVP shirt, but it would have woken up my wife and probably wasn't worth it. But yeah, I like the author of probably my second favorite moment ever as a Braves fan is now back with the team. So this is the trade I'm most excited about, if only for that reason. Does it change Jorge Soler's value in fantasy tremendously? Probably not. He's going to bat leadoff, I would imagine, but he was batting leadoff for the Giants the past couple weeks. I mean, he may be great with the Braves again, just because he was already heating up, as you point out. And we've seen him have these big second halves in the past, including that year with the Braves. Still hits the ball very hard. I think his strikeout rate has been lower than ever this year, right?
It's right around where it was last year, 24.7%. Yeah, I just realized
the big drop was last year. Yeah.
One of Soler or Ozuna will have to play the field now.
Oh yeah.
Which
that was true back then too.
Is not great. I mean,
no, it's not great.
I don't think you really want either of those guys in the outfield. Yeah, Soler, I mean, I don't think it matters what team or venue he plays on. I think it just comes down to Soler. When he's locked in, like we saw last year, he could still be one of the best power hitters in baseball. He hit 36 home runs with a 853 OPS last season. This year, he's been down, but he's been streaky, and it wouldn't surprise me if he gets back on track here. So I don't think he's a must roster in like 3 outfielder leagues, but he could get there if he goes on a heater. Again, that's Jorge Soler. A couple other trades. I think we can kind of breeze past lots of these, Scott, but Justin Turner was traded to the Mariners for outfielder RJ Schreck. Does this matter for fantasy?
I mean, if you had any hope for Mitch Garver, you could probably throw that out. I'm not expecting Justin Turner to be revitalized with the Mariners, though.
Yeah, at 39 years old, it's been a down season for Turner. 253, 6 home runs, 718 OPS. Quality of contact is way down. Ahmed Rosario was traded to the Dodgers in exchange for pitcher Michael Flynn. We know the Dodgers could use help everywhere right now. Third base, shortstop, maybe the outfield as well. Rosario's been fine this year. He's batting over 300. He's got 9 steals, a 748 OPS. Yeah. Deeper leagues, does this matter?
I mean, they've solved shortstop until Tommy Edman's back, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
they didn't play him much, as much as I thought they would when they acquired him at the deadline last year. So I doubt it'll be any different. I think Rosario's just around for depth.
Mm-hmm. The Reds acquired Ty France from the Mariners for catcher Andrew Salcedo, and France also having a down year. I mean, it's pretty much been downhill since he had really good 2021 and 2022 seasons. Cincinnati's a great place to hit, but will he get everyday at bats? I kind of think this is a short side platoon role for Ty France.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, so no excitement there, right?
No.
The Royals acquired Michael Lorenzen from the Rangers for left-handed pitcher Walter Pennington, and Lorenzen has a 3.81 ERA, a 1.28 WHIP. The underlying numbers all look much, much worse here. Any interest in Michael Lorenzen on the Royals?
No. He hasn't been that interesting, even though he has dramatically outperformed his ERA estimators. So I guess they're going to bump Alec Marsh, who actually started here on Monday. I guess he's the one who gets bumped for Lorenzen. I'm not sure that's an upgrade really for the Royals or for fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pitching in that ballpark might keep that ERA usable, but Lorenzen's just a streamer at best.
The Brewers acquired Frankie Montas from the Reds for Joey Wiemer and Jacob Junis, and Montas has a 5.01 ERA, a 1.44 WHIP. Walks have been a problem for him.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Wiemer, once upon a time, there was some prospect hype, some sleeper appeal there. Hasn't been great in the minors this season. We did see some power and speed from him last year. Anybody matter in this trade, Scott? Montas, Joey Wiemer?
Not. I mean, look, Montas has the best chance of mattering. He still has a splitter with a whiff rate over 40%. So there's something to work with. I think mostly just he hasn't had much control after a year lost to shoulder issues. So maybe he'll benefit from a change of scenery and bounce back. I think there's some chance of that, but I'm not rushing out to pick up Montas or anything like that.
All right, the Red Sox acquired Quinn Priester from the Pirates for second base prospect Nick York, and this is an interesting, semi-interesting post-hype prospect swap between these two teams here. Priester has thrown 94 and 2/3 innings in the majors, has not been good. 6.46 ERA, a 158 WHIP. The slider and the curve both look solid. We know that the Red Sox are very much so into spin this year with their pitchers, so maybe they can get something out of Quinn Priester. And Nick York is a former first-round pick back in 2020. He did break out in the lower levels of the minors in 2021, but hasn't really been able to get back to that level. I know he's been better at AAA.
Yeah, he's had a good year.
But can you see either of these guys mattering, Scott? Nick York or Quinn Priester?
I mean, the Red Sox have done interesting things with pitchers, so maybe they'll work their magic on Priester. I'm not going to bet on that necessarily. The York acquisition is kind of a head scratcher to me because he's a second baseman, and they've had Nick Gonzalez break out as a second baseman. I know he's on the IL right now, but it seemed like he had stabilized that spot. And then, their big draft pick a couple years ago, Termarr Johnson, he's still an A-ball, but he's a second baseman. So I don't know. I don't know why they need so many second basemen. I don't know how they're going to make all that work.
I did want to quickly pull up Nick York's minor league page just to see if he's played any other positions. And he has
left field.
Played 27 games in left field. So, yeah, I don't know.
I know he doesn't have well, maybe I shouldn't say I know, but as I recall, he doesn't really have the arm to play the left side of the infield. And I think that's true for all of those guys. I'm not as sure about Gonzalez, but I think Termarr Johnson's the same way.
Mm-hmm. The Pirates also acquired Jalen Beeks from the Rockies for left-handed pitcher Luis Peralta, and I believe I saw that he is the brother of Freddie Peralta. So Luis Peralta going over to the Rockies here. Jalen Beeks, not much. There's no fantasy value here. He adds another lefty to the Pirates bullpen. Aroldis Chapman was the only other lefty there, so obviously they were looking to add some relief help. And that's it for all the trades. But the latest rumor, Jack Flaherty was scratched from his start on Monday. It sounds like multiple teams are looking to acquire him ahead of the trade deadline here on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Bob Nightingale reported the Yankees had extensive talks with the Tigers on Flaherty, and that if they acquired him, they would look to move on from Nestor Cortez. So lots of moving parts, which includes a report from Bob Nightingale. So believe that if you will. But my guess is Jack Flaherty will be on the move somewhere here on Tuesday.
Yep.
A programming note, speaking of the deadline, which is fast, rapidly approaching. If there are lots of trades that happen on Tuesday, we will have a bonus podcast, which we'll go live for on YouTube, 6:15, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, something like that. If there's not much going on, we'll just save the rest of the trades that happen for our nightly recap, our usual podcast at night. And I did want to point out something, and I know a lot of people have reached out to me to let me know there's something going on the audio side of the podcast. We are aware there's some annoying screeching sound that's been playing in the place of some advertisements. We understand that it's extremely annoying, and we do apologize. I know we've already received
even more annoying than an advertisement.
Yes, it is. It is that. I can confirm.
You're wishing for the advertisement at this point.
We're reverse psychologizing the listeners or something like that.
Yeah.
But we've already received a few 1-star reviews on Apple because of it, and I can assure you that we are aware of the issue and we are working to fix it. And we'd love to avoid any more of those 1-star reviews if possible, because they are harmful to the podcast. But I totally understand how annoying it is. Just know that we are working to get that back on track. All right. That's all the trade stuff. Let's actually talk about some baseball stuff from Monday. Jazz Chisholm, baby. Smooth jazz. Let's talk about it. Second game with the Yankees, 2 for 4 with a double dong. One of the home runs came off of a position player, so all right. But one of them also came off of Zach Wheeler, so I feel like that kind of cancels out. Pretty impressive game here, and it was also his first career start at third base. From what I saw, it looked pretty good. Some great defensive plays that I saw here from Jazz Chisholm. The overall numbers, he's up to 15 home runs, 23 steals. It's only a 2-game sample. I just get this feeling, Scott, he is going to really, really try and put forth I don't know, as much effort as possible to stand out for his new team and his new fans, whatever it might be. And we could just truly see a breakout second half here. And I don't know, maybe the rest of his career playing in Yankee Stadium, but maybe I'm overreacting to 2 games. Who knows?
I mean, he's a talented player. I think his talents are going to be better appreciated. I think, everything we said about him yesterday with the venue and everything. It's hard not to be encouraged by the return so far.
So far, that's right. 2 games from Jazz, but so far he has looked great. Scott, let's go over to you. Your player from Monday.
Okay, I'm going to go with MJ Melendez here, who has always been an interesting player and has had an interesting July. So he missed a good chunk of the month with I looked it up right before, sprained ankle, I believe it was. And this was only his second game back, but he went 2 for 5 with a home run. That's his 4th home run in July. He's batting .286 for the month. His overall numbers are terrible. And so I'm not saying you got to rush and pick up MJ Melendez, but just to remind you a couple things about him. His average exit velocity for the year, not just during July where he's been hot, for the year, 91 miles per hour. His max exit velocity, 112.9. His expected batting average, 243, so about 50 points higher than the actual mark. His expected slug, 435, again, about 50 points higher than the actual mark. And his just last year, the second half splits for MJ Melendez were stark. Second half, I think first half he was hitting like 210. Second half, he hit 273 with 10 home runs and an 836 OPS, which is pretty close to must start. A guy with good plate discipline doing that. Maybe he's doing it again. The skills certainly appear to be there for MJ Melendez to have a productive second half. And if returns so far in July are any indication, it's happening. Again, not rushing to pick him up, but you need to be aware of it.
16% rostered on CBS is MJ Melendez. Just a name for deeper leagues. I think 15-team roto with 5 outfielders. I'll throw him in that mix, Scott. How would you rank Melendez, Miguel Vargas, and Joey Loperfido if you're just shooting for some deep league upside?
I'll go Vargas, but I think I'll slot Melendez ahead of Loperfido.
Okay. Wanted to give an, oh my goodness gracious, shout out to Kyle Finnegan, who I guess does not want to be traded because in his audition before the deadline, he entered the 9th inning with a 4-run lead, and he proceeded to give up 5 runs on 5 hits, including 2 homers, a walk-off homer to Corbin Carroll. And Kyle Finnegan only recorded 1 out. He took his 5th loss. He's been amazing all year. I don't think it's crazy for some regression to hit here. Sucks that it came all in 1 outing for Kyle Finnegan. But yeah, a rough outing for him. And shout out to the D-backs, man. They were down 8-2 entering the 7th inning, and they came back all the way back and won that game. So good for them. Let's talk.
Corbin Carroll homered again as a pinch hitter.
He was the walk-off home run.
Oh,
in the 9th inning.
Wow.
You don't like to listen when I talk, do you?
I don't. There's a lot of home runs for him lately. Not a lot of anything else, but.
Yeah, I brought this up yesterday, is that Corbin Carroll, the power and speed has been great in July. The batting average is still terrible. It's around 200. I think it might be 210, something like that. So it's been weird, but I mean, you'll take anything you can get from Corbin Carroll right now, right? So just to put some numbers to it, 215 batting average, 6 homers, 19 runs, 15 RBI, 6 steals, and 829 OPS. So everything's good except for the batting average. So I don't know. Maybe Corbin Carroll can carry this over the final 2 months and finally get back on track. Let's take our final break. When we return, we'll talk news and notes, some waiver wire options. We'll do that right after this.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. pitch perfect.
Welcome back in. Let's talk some news and notes. And Christian Walker exited Monday due to left oblique tightness. Always scary to read that coming out from a slugger. So, I mean, my assumption is that this will either cost him a couple of days or likely to go on the IL. He was replaced by Kevin Newman, so I don't think that there's any intriguing replacement, at least not on the D-backs there for Christian Walker.
Maybe if they hadn't traded Davis and De Los Santos.
I was just thinking the same exact thing, but he gone. He's now on the Miami Marlins in the AJ Puck trade. Cody Bellinger was activated from the IL, but was not in the Cubs lineup on Monday. Why do teams do that, Scott? Why do they activate a player and then not put them in the lineup?
Who was it that was activated?
Cody Bellinger.
Was it a left-hander pitching?
Let's see. They were facing the Reds, I think. No, it was Carson Spires.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The same thing happened for Josh Young. He was activated and not in the lineup. It's weird. I don't exactly. It might be like some kind of weird roster maneuvering that I'm not aware of, but oh well. At least he's back, I guess. Ronaldo Lopez is considered day-to-day after an MRI on his right forearm came back negative. The Braves are hopeful that Lopez will avoid the IL. Josh Naylor was back in the lineup after missing 3 straight with general soreness. Brian Reynolds was back in the lineup after missing 4 games on the bereavement list I just mentioned. But Josh Young finally activated from the IL. He's been out since early April 1st, in fact. I wish that was some kind of cruel April Fool's joke, but it was not. He missed nearly the entire season. And he had wrist surgery, but Josh Young is back, not in the lineup for some reason. Brewers manager Pat Murphy said Devin Williams will not be used on back-to-back days for the time being. Trevor McGill was also placed on the IL with a lower back injury. And I think this opens up for some short-term ancillary saves here. Scott, do you have any prediction as to who would be the 8th inning guy or next up on those days when Devin Williams can't pitch?
I would guess Yoel Piamps. If what's his name? Brian Hudson. If Brian Hudson hadn't himself gone on the IL, maybe he would have been a candidate. But yeah, I mean, it's and I'm not sure it's anybody worth caring about, I guess is ultimately what I'm saying.
Yeah, it would purely be a deeper league. You're really desperate for saves type thing. For what it's worth, they won the game 8-3. It was 8-2 entering the 9th. They traded for Nick Mears recently from the Rockies. He struck out too. I don't know. It might not matter. Let's move on. Francisco Alvarez was out of the lineup Monday due to left shoulder soreness. Carlos Estevez was asked what his role with the Phillies would be. He responded, quote, "I'm down for whatever, man." So we'll see. Giancarlo Stanton made his return Monday and was in the lineup. That's nice. He was batting 5th for the Yankees. While the Padres remain hopeful Yu Darvish will be back at some point later this season, there doesn't appear to be a timeline for his return. He's been on the restricted list for 3+ weeks while dealing with an unspecified personal issue. Merrill Kelly will throw a 3-inning simulated game on Wednesday. His teammate Eduardo Rodriguez could make his season debut next week in Cleveland. Scott, who would you rather have or stash, Merrill Kelly or Erod?
Merrill Kelly. I think he's better.
Yep, I would agree. The Astros are promoting outfielder Pedro Leon to take Joey Loperfito's spot on the roster. I'm not sure how much he's going to play. I do know he's put up some big numbers in the minors, Scott. Is there anything here with Pedro Leon?
I mean, I think it would be sort of the role Loperfito was filling. And I want to say he has strikeout issues too. And it's his, he doesn't have a lot of believers at this point within the prospecting world. So no, I would not be particularly compelled to pick up Pedro Leon.
Just to put some numbers on it, 297 batting average, 19 home runs, 23 steals, 896 OPS in 93 games at AAA this season. Again, that is
the strikeout rate doesn't look so bad. I don't know. Maybe I need to take another look at him, but but I don't think the role would necessitate a what's the word? Proactive move. Yeah.
Yep. John Gray was placed on the IL with a right groin strain and could miss up to a month of action. Hurston Waldrop was reinstated from the IL and optioned to AAA on Monday. The D-backs optioned Gilbert Diaz back to AAA. He had 3 strong starts and 1 really bad one while he was up in the majors. Yariel Rodriguez, speaking of bad starts, he was optioned to AAA after an awful start on Monday in game 1 of their doubleheader. And another day, another player hit in the face with a pitch. This time, James McCann had the ball hit him in the nose. He was leaking blood. I mean, some images I saw of him crouching to receive pitches with just gauze sticking out of his nose to stop blood from coming out. And he played the rest of the game. I never saw anything like it. It was crazy.
It like crazy, like in the true sense. Like who thought that was okay? I mean, clearly he thought he was okay with it, and it just seems like something reflexively you do. A guy gets hit in the face and is bleeding, you take him out, and and maybe he's okay. Maybe he doesn't have fractures or a concussion or whatever. But you take some time to figure that out. Yeah, it's bizarre to me. Like the images were upsetting in my Twitter feed.
Yeah. Tough guy, but weird handling, I guess you could say. Let's talk some waiver wire hitters and 4 outfielders who are either hot or expected to be hot at some point. Colton Cowser, 3 for 7 across the doubleheader with a home run, 3 runs, 3 RBI. He has led off 3 games in a row for the Orioles. In the second half, he is batting .375, 3 homers, 10 runs, 12 RBI, 2 steals, OPS over 1,000. Might just be heating back up. TJ Friedl, 1 for 4 with his 5th home run, 3 RBI. He returned on Friday, has started 3 of 4 games. Masataka Yoshida had a big game, 3 for 5 with his 5th home run and 4 RBI. Also having a big July, .338, 3 home runs, 20 RBI, .922 OPS. And Jeff McNeil stayed hot, 2 for 4 with a double, 2 runs, and 3 RBI. 11 games in the second half for McNeil. .359, 4 homers, 10 runs, 12 RBI, 1152 OPS. So lots of interesting options here, Scott. How would you rank Cowser, Friedl, Yoshida, and Jeff McNeil?
I would rank them Friedl number 1, McNeil number 4, probably Cowser over Yoshida 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But Friedel's the one who I feel like even in 3 outfielder leagues probably needs to be rostered.
And the most added outfielders on CBS right now are Tyler Fitzgerald and Lawrence Butler. Would you put those at the top of the list?
Butler, and who was the other one?
Tyler Fitzgerald.
I guess I'd put Butler at the top of the list, but I think I'd rather have Friedl than Fitzgerald.
I think that sounds right. Yeah. So Butler, Friedl, Fitzgerald, Cowser, Yoshida, McNeil. Maybe I swap Yoshida and Cowser in a points league because Cowser strikes out a lot, but I'm intrigued by really all these names here. Cowser, the fact that he's leading off and the power and speed, we've seen him be good. He might just turn out to be a really streaky player, and looks like he's getting on one of those hot streaks once again. Corner infielders, Michael Busch just continues to be rock solid. 1 for 3 with a walk and his 13th home run since June 7th, last 43 games for Michael Busch. He's batting .290, 5 home runs, 22 runs scored, and OPS right around .850. And Nate Lowe, 2 for 4 with his 9th home run, last 28 games for him, .310 batting average, 7 homers, 24 RBI, and OPS over 900. Scott, who would you rather have, Michael Busch or Nate Lowe?
Well, I will point out that they were both sleeper hitters for this week. So that's off to a good start. I would rather have Lowe, who I just think is going to be more predictable. But I do like the way Busch is trending. I think the gap is pretty close there between those two.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Lowe is up to 66% rostered. Busch is at 73. Some names just ahead of them. Rhys Hoskins is at 76%. Would you drop Hoskins for those guys? It almost feels like a lateral move.
I would not drop Hoskins for those two.
Yeah. Candelario has really slowed down. Would you make that swap?
In a shallow enough league where you could think about it, where these guys might actually be available. I mean, that seems like go with the hot hand to me.
Okay. Let's talk some waiver wire pitchers and not too many intriguing options, but some solid ones. Colin Ray, another solid start up against the Braves, 5 1/3, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. And Jose Quintana turned in another strong start up against the Twins, 6 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. Over his last 8 starts, it's a 1.91 ERA, a 1.02 WHIP for Jose Quintana. Carson Spires, who pitches for the Reds, he returned on Monday up against the Cubs. 5 shutout innings, just 1 hit, 4 strikeouts to 2 walks. And Grant Holmes from your Atlanta Braves made his first career start, and he pitched really well at the Brewers. 5 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 11 whiffs on 70 pitches. A 4-pitch mix. Both of the breaking pitches look pretty good. What do you think, Scott? Anything here on Grant Holmes, Carson Spires, Jose Quintana, and Colin Ray?
I mean, there might be something here with Holmes. I don't know if he's going to get another start. This was billed as a spot start, but it went so well. And as a multi-inning reliever coming into this start, he had a swinging strike rate of 15.9%, which the only qualifying starting pitcher who comes close to that, and he doesn't surpass it, but the only one who comes close is Garrett Crochet. Now, that was in relief in a small sample, but it was a lot of like 3-inning appearances for Grant Holmes. So then he comes in and over a 5-inning appearance, he does this. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued. We'll see if he gets another shot for the Braves, but I think there might be some talent here. It wasn't long ago I guess it was kind of long ago. It was long ago that Grant Holmes was a prospect of some note, so it's not like he just came out of nowhere. Let's see. Who else are we talking about here? Ray, I mean, the same old story. You expect him to fall apart at some point, but hasn't happened yet. Quintana's on a nice run, as we've seen from him before. Spires, I don't have a lot of confidence in Spires. He's a fly ball pitcher who has somehow, despite pitching half his games in Cincinnati, somehow just given up 5 home runs in over 50 innings. So I feel like that's going to hit him pretty hard at some point. There doesn't seem to be a lot of swing and miss ability here. So I'm not so much buying into Spires. I would say he's of the lowest interest to me of these 4.
Grant Holmes, by the way, I was just watching a video of him. The hair, fantastic, Scott.
Yeah.
You gotta love that. So
it's reminiscent of Kenny Powers, right? Eastbound and Down character.
I can see that. Grant Holmes, 1% rostered. He is a SPARP on CBS. Deeper leagues for now. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, this was a pretty impressive first career start from him. Another big day of offenses overall here on Monday. And we know offense has been up in July. We had 3 teams score 14 or more runs, 8 teams that scored 8 or more runs. And as a result, that led to some blow-up starts here from some pitchers. So Zach Wheeler got crushed by the Yankees, 5 innings, 7 runs allowed, 6 strikeouts. He allowed 3 homers in this start. Logan Gilbert got crushed at the Red Sox, 2 2/3, 7 runs allowed for him, 4 strikeouts to 0 walks. And if you picked up either one of Simeon Woods Richardson or Jordan Montgomery for a 2-start week, I'm sorry, because they had bad starts. Simeon Woods Richardson at the Mets, 3 1/3, 6 runs allowed. Jordan Montgomery, 4 innings, 6 runs as well. It's just, for those last 2, Scott, I think if you picked them up for a 2-start week, they're locked into your lineup this week. Okay, it is what it is. I think you could go ahead and drop them for anybody else who's more intriguing. Montgomery is more talented than this, but we're 15 starts in. He's got a 6.51 ERA. I don't think we can mess around anymore with him, at least for now.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm not so much worried about the others. I mean, Simeon Woods Richardson, he seemed like He seemed like an overachiever. Not that there was nothing there to work with. I liked him a little more than Colin Ray, for instance, but it wouldn't surprise me if he fell off, if this was the beginning of the end for him. But there's nothing really to worry about for Wheeler and Logan Gilbert. They had been so solid for so long. I think it's like you said at the top, just the way the ball is playing right now. We're going to see more of these blow up starts just out of nowhere, even for good pitchers, because the environment is shifting back toward offense.
Yeah. And one other name I didn't mention there, but Jamison Tyone at the Reds, 4 1/3, 6 hits, 6 runs. He allowed 2 homers. He was also on a great run recently. So perhaps this is a regression start, tough ballpark to pitch in. He's also auditioning, likely to get traded, I would imagine, here on Tuesday. We'll wait and see if Jamison Tyone is actually traded before the deadline. Let's get into some other leftovers, Scott, and some pitching. Zach Eflin turned in a quality start in his Orioles debut up against the Blue Jays. 6 innings, 10 hits, 3 runs. All right. Did have 7 strikeouts. He picked up the win. It is what it is. Tanner Bybee, quality start at the Tigers. 6 innings, 2 runs, only 2 strikeouts. Gave up some hard contact in this one. He left his last start with cramping in his right knee. I didn't see anything about it. Velocity was down a little bit, so maybe that factored in for Tanner Bybee. Luis Gil was solid at the Phillies. 5 1/3, 3 runs allowed, 8 strikeouts. Continues to lean heavy on that slider. Used it 47% in this one, and it was a good pitch for him. Nick Pivetta, a strong bounce back up against the Mariners. 6 2/3, 3 runs with 10 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 109 pitches. And Paul Skeens, a quality start at the Astros. 6 innings, 2 runs, one of those earned, 6 strikeouts with 16 whiffs on 101 pitches. 5 names here, Scott. Anything to add on Skeens, Pivetta, Luis Gil, Tanner Bybee, and Zach Eflin?
I would add that Bybee's strikeouts have been concerning me lately. 3 good starts in a row, but less than a strikeout per in each. 9.8 K per 9 still for the season, so it's definitely out of character. But I don't even really know how to explain it. It just concerns me a little, is all. Luis Gil, what happened here doesn't really concern me. Velocity was up on his pitches. He got plenty of whiffs. He threw strikes at a decent rate too. Just issued 3 walks. Facing the Phillies, I don't think it's a big deal. No reason for panic. Nice to see Pivetta bounce back after that terrible start at Colorado. For the most part, he's been good in June. He had another start that wasn't a quality start, but he had a bunch of strikeouts in it.
In July.
I'm sorry, July. Yeah, in July. But that disastrous start at Colorado, I think we can just write that one off as a product of Coors Field.
Luis Gil, by the way, last 4 starts, a 2.35 ERA, a 1 whip on the nose, 30 strikeouts to just 5 walks over 23 innings. So he had that rough stretch, but for the most part, it looks like Luis Gil is back on track here with the Yankees. The AL MVP race, Scott, is going to be insane because I would not want to be a voter this year. There are many great options, and we saw a few of them do some big things again on Monday. Aaron Judge, he's not human. 2 for 5 with a double dong, 3 RBI. He's now up to 39 home runs, 99 RBI, and July is not over yet. It's July 30th. So just interested to see where those numbers wind up. Bobby Witt Jr. continues his ridiculous second half, 4 for 5 with a go-ahead grand slam in the 8th inning of that game. 10 games in the second half. He's batting .575 with 3 homers, 12 runs, 12 RBI, a 1580 OPS. And I don't hear anyone bring up Jose Ramirez's name. I feel like he's kind of on the periphery of the MVP race. The Guardians, I believe, still have the best record in the American League, but 3 for 4 with a double dong for him. I don't know who's going to win it, Scott, but all these players are awesome.
Well, you didn't even mention Gunnar Henderson, who I think is in that discussion as well.
And Soto.
Yeah. I mean, by baseball reference, Gunnar Henderson is 2nd in the AL and WAR, and Soto is 4th. Witt is 3rd. Ramirez, where is Ramirez? I don't know.
Perhaps the defense drags him down.
Am I looking at the right year? Yeah, I'm looking at the right year. Where's Jose Ramirez in the WAR leaders? Wow.
Is he that bad?
is not. Gosh, why is he so far down there? I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But it's behind Ezekiel Tovar. I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. Aaron Judge has a pretty commanding WAR lead, though. I will point out, almost a full WAR ahead of Gunnar Henderson on Baseball Reference.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the difference between Fangraphs WAR and Baseball Reference WAR, but it's a lot closer. Judge is at 7.1. Bobby Witt Jr. is at 6.9 on Fangraphs. And Jose Ramirez is at 3.1. So,
yeah, they interpret defense a little differently, and I think they place more value on what I call theoretical stats rather than actual production, which is better in a predictive sense. But that's, to me, that's not what you award awards for. So I would value Baseball Reference more for this exercise, but I'm sure many out there would disagree.
Some hitting leftovers. Vlad Jr. will not stop hitting. A huge doubleheader, 7 for 10 with 2 home runs, 4 runs, 5 RBI. And I will give you an update. Since cutting the hair, 33 games, 376 batting average, 14 homers, 39 RBI, and OPS over 1100 for Vlad Jr., who is on fire. Anthony Santander became the 4th hitter with 30 home runs this season. He also has an 833 OPS. His career high, 33 homers in 152 games back in 2022. He's at 30 home runs through 102 games this year. And he's in a contract year. So Santander trying to get paid. And looks like he does deserve it quite a bit. Anthony Volpe hitting much better in the second half so far. 2 for 4 with his 9th home run. 10 games after the break. 333, 3 homers, 3 steals, 944 OPS. Cal Raleigh, 2 for 5 with his 23rd home run. He's homered in 3 straight. His 23 home runs lead all of catchers. His 67 RBI, second at the position. Pete Alonso has homered in back-to-back games. Willy Adames has had a bounce-back July after a really down June. 326 with 4 home runs, lots of counting stats, 914 OPS in the month for Willy Adames. And Jackson Chourio stayed hot, 2 for 4 with his 12th home run since the start of June. For Chourio, it's a 320 batting average, 7 homers, 26 runs, 28 RBI, and 5 steals. So it is happening for Chourio, Scott. Lots of names there. Anything that you wanted to touch on?
I will point out that during this strong run for Volpe, he's hitting the ball a good bit harder on average. Now, whether that's a chicken and egg thing, and that, okay, of course he's hitting it harder. He's hit 3 home runs, or he's hitting it harder and that's why he hit 3 home runs. I'm not ready to commit to, but there's been a lot of big talk on both sides for Volpe. When he's going well, see, this is the big breakout. This was why he was the big prospect, what everybody believed in. And then when he's going poorly, it doesn't look like there's much here. Fringy guy, whatever. And I don't think he's really settled into who he's going to be yet. It's still awfully early in his career. He's still very young. And maybe we just need to let it play out for a while. I understand you have to make roster moves in fantasy, and I think it was totally fine if you dropped him in shallower head-to-head leagues with no middle infield spot. But I don't want to make any long-term I'm completely in or I'm completely out on Anthony Volpe, because I still think we just need to see it play out.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I think Volpe is interesting because he's a better fantasy player, I think, than real-life player. The OBP is not great. The OPS is sub 700. So you look at those two and you say...
But isn't the defense really good?
The defense is good, but I just mean it in the sense of, we see sometimes players that provide a little bit of power and speed. Okay, the OBP and the OPS is subpar. I'm thinking of someone like Andres Jimenez, right? He's had really useful seasons for fantasy because he'll chip in 15 homers and 30 steals, and that's kind of the player I think Volpe is turning into. And I think that's a useful player for fantasy. It's not, an elite player. It's not a league winner, but if he gets to 12 to 15 home runs with 25 to 30 steals, that's a useful player for fantasy. So
I kind of feel like, I was thinking just look at Tommy Edmonds' numbers and how useful he's been in fantasy. And I kind of feel like that's the downside for Volpe with more walks.
Yeah.
Like he could be Edmund with more walks, or he could be more.
I don't know if that's the downside. I think that might be like the median expectation right now, but he is young enough, like I think you were about to say, where he could get better. It's not inconceivable. So,
well, isn't he basically on pace for Volpe numbers right now? I'm sorry, for Edmund numbers right now.
Yeah, and this kind of feels like a median outcome for him, right?
Okay, I guess. I mean, I don't expect him to be worse than this moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think it's a downside argument.
Well,
so there.
I think it comes into like what your expectations were, right? Because I was down on Volpe coming into the year, and I didn't really have much faith. And obviously he got off to the hot start, and then he regressed, and now he's hot again. So we'll see where it winds up. But yeah, I think a Tommy Edman, Andres Jimenez type fantasy output is kind of where we're trending right now with Anthony Volpe. Some bullpen updates for the Rangers. Kirby Yates struck out one for his 19th save. For the Astros, Josh Hader entered in the 9th with the game tied. He gave up a 3-run homer to Michael A. Taylor. Really? Michael A. Taylor? Hader took his 6th loss. The ERA is up to 4.11. I did not look this up beforehand, but it feels like anytime Josh Hader pitches in a non-save situation, he is just terrible. And that was the case here again on Monday. For the Pirates, David Bednar got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He gave up 1 run on 2 walks and 2 hits, but picked up his 19th save. I was watching that game. Really interesting. The 9th inning, bases loaded. There was 2 outs at the time. They intentionally walked Yordan Alvarez with the bases loaded, a 3-run lead. They just did not want to pitch it. He did not throw him any strikes. They wanted to face Yainer Diaz instead. And so they walked in a run. They still had a 2-run lead. And then Yainer Diaz popped out to end the game. So it worked out, but you don't see that every day. So
I mean, that was the kind of stuff they were doing back when Bonds was in his prime. But yeah, you don't see it much. It does surprise me that they wouldn't just go for the intentional walk. Like, did they think Yordan Alvarez was going to swing out of his shoes at a bunch of obvious balls? Because you risk bases loaded. You risk a wild pitch.
Yeah.
When you don't even have to throw pitch outs anymore to get an intentional walk.
It was an interesting call. All of the pitches were up and in, and Alvarez actually swung 3-0 on a pitch that was like borderline up and in. It technically hit the box on the K zone, but yeah, after that, right after that, it was not even close. So just an interesting strategy there for the Pirates, and it worked out. They won the game. For the Royals, James MacArthur pitched a clean 9th for his 18th save. And for the Blue Jays in game 2 of their doubleheader, Chad Green entered with 2 outs in the 7th, runners on 1st and 2nd, a 2-run lead. He got Adley Rutschman to fly out. Chad Green stayed out there for the 8th, and he pitched a clean inning. It was lefty Genesis Cabrera who got the 9th with a 4-run lead. He gave up a hit, but struck out 2. I just think it's telling, in case Chad Green is moved before the deadline tomorrow, Cabrera might be next up for saves for the Blue Jays. This is something to keep in mind there. To stream or not to stream on Tuesday, and no clue how many of these pitchers will actually still be on their teams by the time the deadline rolls around. But some interesting names. Gavin Williams is at the Tigers. We have Jeffrey Springs making his season debut. He's facing the Marlins. We have Sean Manaea gets the Twins. Lance Lynn gets the Rangers. Michael Wacha at the White Sox.
Yeah, I think we said yesterday Wacha at the White Sox, Springs against the Marlins, and Williams at the Tigers in that order. I'm sticking with it.
And on Wednesday, it is pretty bad. I think Brian Bayo against the Mariners. Brian Bayo is pretty scary throwing him out there.
Yeah, he was among my sleeper pitchers for the week, number 10.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, Kyle Freeland at the Angels. Drew Thorpe, I mean, there's no way. I can't recommend Drew Thorpe again.
No.
Andrew Heaney at the Cardinals.
You know what? Heaney at the Cardinals might be okay.
All right.
Yeah. I'm okay with that one.
Sounds good. All right. We are going to wrap there. Again, just a reminder, if there's lots of trades going down Tuesday we will go live for a bonus podcast around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. If not, we'll just save everything for our normal nighttime recap. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.